So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Go to Antique Obsessions for the hottest in jewelry, antiques, repurposed, solid sterling silver, one-of-a-kind, handmade by Bruce and Jaja. Go to our Facebook, which is Antique Obsessions, or you can go to Etsy.com and go to Antique Obsessions, one word, or type it into your Google and find us there. Thanks.
Tribal, primitive, rustic, Burning Man, punk rock, conceptual subculture for the edgiest, most cutting-edge designs of jewelry today. Go to Etsy.com/shop/conceptual subculture, or one word, either by going to Google or search Etsy, ETSY.com, and type in one word, conceptual subculture. You will find the hottest designs using natural stones with wire wrap rings, rough, raw, genuine, semi-precious gemstone jewelry, solid sterling silver, copper, leather, orgonite, bracelets, pendants, chokers, men's copper cups with sterling accents, eco-friendly, repurposed, original, one-of-a-kind design earrings. Support MBN by going to Conceptual Subculture on Etsy.
Warning, warning, everything I say is fucking crazy and should not be reinterpreted or reenacted because you will be either shot or NDAA'd. Warning.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the second installment of the Bruce Montalvo Show. Monday nights just got a hell of a lot better. You're listening to the Bruce Montalvo Show, broadcasting live on Spreaker.com, December 4th, 2017. And joining me today is a professor of conspiracies. That's right, and he's got all the degrees to prove it. No, really, he is, such a great individual with so many accolades. James Henry Fetzer, Distinguished McKnight University Professor Emeritus of the Philosophy of Science, University of Minnesota. I mean, it's a big intro right there. Let's introduce him. We have him on the line. Professor Fetzer, are you there?
Oh, I am indeed, Bruce, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Professor Fetzer. I can't tell you how many countless nights I've heard you on so many of the alternative radio broadcasts.
No, that's fantastic. I'm very appreciative of that, Bruce. God knows I've appeared a lot of them.
Right. No, it's great to have you on, Ed. I mean, it's the real deal. You cover the real deal, but you're an academic. You're an investigative research professional, an investigative researcher. Tell us about that.
Well, I had 35 years as a professor offering courses principally in logic, critical thinking, and scientific reasoning. I did a great deal of research on the theoretical foundations of scientific knowledge, scientific reasoning, scientific theory, scientific laws, scientific explanations, also on the foundations of computer science, artificial intelligence, cognitive science, evolution and mentality. Since my retirement in 2006,
Wow.
I've been focusing primarily on issues of great public interest and concern, because these are cases where the government has a motive to mislead the American people about what's actually happened in order to affect our attitudes, behavior, and support for the government's political agenda, which has included JFK, 9/11, Wellstone, Sandy Hook, the Boston bombing, Orlando and Dallas. I've also done work on the moon landing, on the death of Paul McCartney and his replacement by an even better musician, a host of others. My latest is on Charlottesville. Book out just now on Charlottesville, political theater in Charlottesville, which will be followed by my next on Las Vegas. In all these cases, Bruce, I bring together experts on different aspects of the case. So it's not just my opinion, but it's collaborative research on Sandy Hook, for example. 13 contributors, including 6 current or retired PhD professors and other experts on the case.
Wow. I just spoke with Wolfgang Halbig, who just had Leon Posner's father just back out of court. I mean, that was huge. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. It's Noah is the child.
No, sorry.
He's actually a fabrication. Bruce, out of photographs of his older stepbrother, Michael Wagner, when he was a child. Anyone who wants to catch on to what's going on in Sandy Hook, go to my blog, Sandy Hook Charade. Noah Posner was Michael Wagner as a child, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
He was just a crisis actor. I see you wrote the book, Nobody Died at Sandy Hook. It was a FEMA drill to promote gun control. Tell us about that.
Right. And it was banned by Amazon.com less than a month after it gone on sale. It went on sale 22 October, banned 19 November. It had sold nearly 500 copies, Bruce. In other words, it was going to be a runaway bestseller. They couldn't have that for a book that blew apart the official narrative of Sandy Hook, so they banned it. I could tell the whole thing was political, so I immediately released it for free as a PDF. So anyone out there in your audience can actually just go to their browser and enter the title, Nobody Died at Sandy Hook, and you'll be able to download your own copy of the first edition of the book.
Wow. No, it's vital. It's pivotal because, I mean, not many academics out there do what you do and tackle these conspiracies head first and prove that they're not just conspiracies, they're conspiracy facts. I mean, this is quite astonishing what you're doing, Mr. Fetzer, Professor Fetzer.
You got the right sense, Bruce. Yeah, at least to call me Jim. What I do is to take conspiracy theories from theories in the weak sense of rumors, speculations, or guesses, to rumors in the conspiracy theories in the strong sense of empirically testable explanatory hypotheses.
Right.
So, which enables you to test them. The crucial aspect, as in the case of JFK, we discovered, was to sort out the authentic from the inauthentic evidence. Once you do that, actually, it turns out to be fairly straightforward to figure out what happened.
Oh, it's that is so murky to me, the JFK assassination. I know you've done quite extensive amount of research. I went out there myself, and I didn't find anybody in the storm drain. So I don't know what to think anymore, Professor Fetzer. But but seriously, the crisis actors, that's going on. I mean, the government, they're even hiring crisis actors off of Craigslist. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. I mean, they got crisis corpses. And what the people don't know is that the U.S. literally repealed the propaganda ban so that they could spread government-made fake news, which is what you expose. I mean, this is what you expose, Professor Fetzer. Jim.
That's exactly right. I mean, with the National Defense Appropriation Act of 2013, the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948, which precluded the use of the same techniques of disinformation and propaganda within the United States that were being used without, was nullified. This was an action of Barack Obama. He turns out to be a guy who opened the spigot for all these phony events. He was deeply involved, along with Eric Holder, his then Attorney General, along with the governor of the state, Daniel Malloy, along with the Newtown School Board, along with the Connecticut State Police, along with these fabricated families with the Newtown event. It's interesting how you get unexpected confirmations when you have a true hypothesis. For example, on one of my blogs, where I must have, 20 different blogs about Sandy Hook, recently one showed up from a resident of Boston saying how the mayor of Boston was on this radio show about 2 months before Sandy Hook. And the mayor was reporting how he had a conversation with the vice president, Joe Biden. And Joe Biden assured him the gun control would be all wrapped up by February of 2013. And when the host pressed him and said, what in the world could cause that to happen, he went silent. But the fact is, of course, he was talking about the planned event at Sandy Hook on the 14th of December 2012.
Right.
Where Barack Obama signed no less than 23 executive orders to constrain our access to weapons under the Second Amendment on the 16th of January 2013. So that's what Biden was talking about. It just hasn't worked, but it's not because they didn't have a cleverly designed scheme. We even have actually discovered the FEMA manual for the event, Bruce, which was a 2-day FEMA drill. They had a rehearsal on the 13th, going live on the 14th, which is why you had porta potties already in place, why you had boxes of pizza, bottled water at the firehouse, why you had so many participants with name tags on lanyards, why there was a sign there that said everyone must check in, why you had parents bringing children to the scene. No parent would bring a child to the scene of an actual child shooting massacre, but this was the rehearsal the day before. They were treating it as a festive occasion.
Oh, let alone they're not supposed to publish any pictures of the children in that dire duress in that state. If it really happened, that's actionable.
Well, they didn't. There weren't any bodies. They didn't allow the parents.
Well, I'm referring to the pictures where they're kind of pushing the little kids, and it's like it just happened, and they're all scared, and they're kind of pushing them in a line, like out of the school.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one of 2 photographs taken by Shannon Hicks, who was an editor photographer for the Newtown Bee, the local newspaper. It turns out that photograph you're describing, which appears to be a policewoman leading a string of about 15 kids to safety.
Right, like an FBI,
it was a staged photograph. We have a second that was taken earlier, and you actually see a string of parents there, 6 or 8, with their hands in their pockets, their arms folded, casually looking on. There are actually 2 in the background, just, I would describe it as lounging at the massacre, because they're obviously totally unconcerned. The policewoman is rearranging the kids to get a better shot.
Wow.
So in the first photo, you got a little girl in a pink sweater and a short skirt at the front of the line, but they replace her with a little boy who's somewhat taller in a dark blue sweater and blue jeans. This is something that obviously you would not do if this were actually seeking to escape from a child shooting scene.
Absolutely not. No, and I'm seeing that all these psyops, all these false flags are interconnected. The Sandy Hooks, the Boston bombing, and Las Vegas. Now I want to
You mentioned Craigslist. We have the Craigslist ad for San Bernardino.
Yeah.
Where it announces good pay, transportation, food, some speaking roles. The call date is December 1st, going live on December 2nd. That was a very artificial contrivance. They had this black. It may or may not have been a Jeep. It may have been a Toyota. Apparently under remote control. They claim they shot it up, but they have these little stickers they could put on windshields to make them look like bullet holes. There were no bullet holes, no damage to the body. Apparently they didn't want to go to the expense of having the body repaired, before it would be sold off as a used vehicle. When it comes to a stop, the woman, the wife of this Muslim couple, allegedly falls out on the passenger side, and she turns out to have her hands tied behind her back. And when you do a close-up, it turns out to be a mannequin. It's one of these very sophisticated versions, Bruce, that has flesh-like properties, but it's a mannequin. We found the same thing happened in Nice, France, where this big 18-wheeler was in a part of the city where those trucks aren't even legally allowed to go. That is alleged to have taken out 84 people. And yet when you inspect the front of the vehicle, there's not a speck of blood. I mean, this is a preposterous claim.
Oh, they could be using pig's blood, from what I've heard. Or, like you said, yeah, these mannequins. Now, Professor Fetzer, I studied criminal justice, and believe it or not, in San Bernardino, actually, when I lived back in California back in 2011. I got my degree there at a college. And they had us working with these crisis corpses, right? We walk in, and it's like, the crime scene, and, there's a shell casing here, and you catalog the evidence there. And I'm pretty sure they're using these mannequins. They're training all these crisis actors, whether it be EMT or police. I mean, they're all in on it, are they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because in these, and they actually did use mannequins. In fact, I was so startled that in one of my books about Orlando, from Orlando to Dallas and beyond.
Another psyop, right.
Ole Domagard had an essay there in which he discussed these, and with photographs of the mannequins, which I thought were so striking, I put on the back cover. If you're interested in any of these, what I have done is to bring together the best experts on different aspects of each of these cases to create a semi-permanent repository, a library, if you will, documenting what really happened in these cases that have been played up for their political significance. So if you want to know what really happened, check out moonrockbooks.com, and you'll have quite an array. Where my latest, as I may have already mentioned, is on Charlottesville, and now I'm editing one on Las Vegas.
Right, and I want to talk to you about Las Vegas. Being I have a little investigative background myself, it just seems like just so contrived, so hoaxy. Because if someone shot that many bullets out of the Mandalay Bay, like they said he did, I mean, wouldn't there be a whole bunch of bullet holes on the ground? I mean, there's nothing. I mean, right. 500 blood stains on the ground, and nothing. There's literally nothing.
Right. That's very good. That's very good, Bruce. You're very perceptive. I mean, the sheriff even recently claimed that Stephen Paddock, the Patsy, had fired 1,100 rounds. Well, if you look inside his suite, where we have photographs, there's this astonishing array of weapons, 23 weapons, including some of the most popular, no doubt to, be the target of a gun grab. But you also have the body there, and interestingly, there are shell casings on top of the blood. Once you're dead, and they claim he committed suicide, obviously you stop shooting. So that if there were any shell casings, they would be under the blood, but these are on top of the blood. Scott Bennett, who's a former Army Intel and PSYOPs officer, noticed some of the shell casings, and they're only a handful, a couple of dozen max, not 1,100. Are actually for blanks, which of course have a crimped nose rather than an open for a lead projectile having been fired. And others were CO2 cartridges for gas-propelled pellet guns, for example. In other words, what happened, Bruce, was somebody who's used to doing, stage sets to put out props, didn't even think about the fact that there might be a close or minute study of what they were doing, so they just threw around a few to make it look right, to give the right impression.
Oh, right.
But when
stage
the
props,
claims he fired 1,100 and you can't find more than 24, well, that means you're missing well over 1,000 shell casings, and clearly that falsifies the scenario, which is one of several different versions they've advanced.
Oh, it's the MGM Grand. I mean, they make movies. I mean, doesn't anybody put 1 and 2 together?
Very good. This was a movie. That's exactly right. What they did was they had a pre-recorded soundtrack, very high quality, including the sound of a machine gun. You can hear another automatic weapon, a military weapon. You can hear bullet strikes on the soundtrack.
It was a PA system. It was a PA system. It was literally, they put a CD and they played a tune, a soundtrack.
That's right. And then they had coordinated special visual effects, for example, on the 4th floor in the middle of the hotel. Now, this is completely away from the wing where Paddock was alleged to have been firing those 1,100 rounds, if you believe the sheriff. You had had light flashes simulating a machine gun. Floors above it, you had 3 light flash repetitions to simulate, modern military weapons fire 3-round blast. We have looked at 33 videos from the concert, and you hear a lot of the sound of bullets, but you don't see any bullets. You don't see any bullet strikes. In fact, the FBI was cleaning up the scene recently, and high def showed they weren't discovering any bullet strikes on the ground whatsoever. In fact, the FBI's conduct in this case has been very peculiar. If it had been real, they actually wiped clean the cell phones and laptops of witnesses at the scene, which would have been crucial evidence had anyone actually been shot or killed.
Wow. It's just such phony baloney hoaxery because, I don't want to compare it to another movie, but even in Pulp Fiction, the director made sure that Samuel L. Jackson would be covered with like brain matter and goo and blood and all that stuff. The head's like a watermelon. It'll burst. There'll be blood all over the place. None of these people running and screaming, all these teeny boppers, had any blood on them. It's just so fake.
Yeah, absolutely, completely fake. Let me tell you one of the best exposés. There's a mountain of evidence. Paul Craig Roberts, who's our nation's leading public intellectual, for example, has published multiple reports from medical experts. One's a military surgeon who reviewed the videos of the purported patients in the hospital and concluded that they were all actors. None of them had actually suffered from a high-velocity wound.
Jim, have any of them died? I watched the news coverage, and it was like, okay, you're telling me 500 people died. First, it was supposedly started in the New York, and then it just went to Mandalay, and they didn't think anybody would remember that. You're watching the coverage and nobody dies, and then you just forget about it until the next crisis hoax they come up with. That's what happened.
Well, here's the deal. They claimed 58 or 59 died if you count the alleged shooter, but that over 500 were wounded. Well, now that 500 who were wounded, some would have had serious wounds and ought to have died subsequently, but we haven't had a single death subsequent to the original 59. Not only that, but the 3 closest hospitals, a Facebook friend called to the 3 closest hospitals, and they all reported they had had no gunshot admissions, not one victim. One even said, I think you're calling about the crisis drill. She said, you ought to check with the police, but no one was shot. And I even followed up by calling the same 3 hospitals, and one had been given the word and just said no comment, which I interpreted as no, they hadn't had any, and the other 2 confirmed they'd had no gunshot admissions. Well, that's preposterous. If you got 500 victims, that's going to overwhelm any facility in Las Vegas. You'd have to distribute them. The 3 closest would have been overrun with victims, but they didn't have any. Here's an even more outrageous case we had at the Hooters. Intel Hub thought it had exclusive, that they found 17 ambulances pulled up at Hooters. So they thought there'd been a mini massacre in Hooters.
Right.
But they weren't paying attention to their own video because they had video internal to Hooters, and there were, all these crisis actors sitting around bored stiff with sheets waiting to be taken out on stretchers as additional victims.
And didn't something happen at the Tropicana as well, Jim? There was like paramilitary, almost Blackwater crew escorting someone, pointing guns at the casino goers in the Tropicana. I saw footage of that.
Well, that was a Saudi Arabian prince who, I think this was all coincidental. I don't think they had any idea that the shooting was going to take place. They were just escorting him out, maybe rapidly because there were all these reports of shots. But you're right. Multiple hotels had, for example, their front windows blown out.
Right.
Whether it was with bullets or some other cause is another question, but it included the Flamingo and the Bellagio and New York, as you mentioned.
Coordinated.
We have actually got the radio scanner for this very elaborate drill, and it's very obvious that it was just a drill. That's all it was a drill. And I'll tell you, because there'd be such a demand for death certificates and autopsy reports, they actually closed the Clark County Coroner's Office because they couldn't cope with the demands. I mean, it's just ridiculous. They didn't have anything to give out. We have other photographs showing 3 bodies being transferred from a local funeral home into an ambulance in order to be presented as bodies from the concert. I mean, it's embarrassing.
Didn't they have like a private coroner? It wasn't even like related to the city coroner. It was like some just like made up coroner pick up bodies during the day or something. It was weird. I saw something.
Well, that's very interesting. I haven't tripped over that, but it would make sense. It would certainly fit the scenario because, look, the whole thing was planned well in advance. George Soros
yes.
had put a $41 million short on MGM Mandalay Bay, which means he's betting the stock's going to drop, and when it drops, he makes a bundle.
Right.
Now, James Murin, who's the CEO of Mandalay Bay, MGM, sold off 80% of his stock so it could buy it back at a cheaper price and make a bundle. We had the Chertoff Group, which specializes in these body scanners, salivating on the sideline, waiting for a decree to come down to put these body scanners in every hotel and casino in Las Vegas, hoping then it's going to be extended to all the churches and schools in the country, and they'll make billions upon billions for a non-existent problem. That's what the country's been reduced to, fabricating a fake problem so you can market a solution and make a bundle.
Wow. Oh, I remember that Chertoff group. They're the guys that brought us the underwear bomber, right? That guy. And
well, he was...
or the shoe bomber.
This guy was an assistant to John Ashcroft when he was Attorney General during 9/11, so that when these 5 Israelis were arrested from Liberty State Park, where they'd been filming the destruction of the World Trade Center, celebrating high fives and all that, they were arrested in a van, which actually had a drawing of a plane with the Twin Towers in the background.
Right, Bush.
More blatant. They
Bush.
come to be known as the dancing Israelis. There was money in the vehicles and box cutters and smell of explosives.
That gets iffy because it confuses me because people say it's an inside job or it's an outside job. I don't know who did it. Did Bush do it? I think it was his creepy dad Magog that was behind it all. That's just me.
No, look on it. It gives you a very thorough breakdown. It's called American Nuked on 9/11.
Right.
Compliments of the CIA, the neocons, and the DOD, and the Mossad. It was a joint CIA-Mossad op. In fact, many experts around the world have agreed that there were only 2 agencies that could have pulled it off. They were the CIA and the Mossad, and on 9/11 they were acting together.
Right. Well, that makes sense. There are allies in the Middle East. But Professor Fetzer, you've also covered a very creepy, very sinister occult topic, and that's what they're doing to our children via this Pizzagate. That's not so phony as everybody says. I mean, just today I saw a picture of John Podesta hugging that creepazoid Stephen Colbert. So they're buddies, and you see another guy that's like the epitome of fake news, Colbert.
That puts me on the verge of nausea. I mean, that's just disgusting. Stephen Colbert, yeah, maybe he's part of the pedophile ring. It's enormous. I did an interview with an NYPD Gold's field detective by the name of Jim Rothstein, who cracked many pedophile cases in New York, often to find that the DA suppressed them, that they wouldn't take them to a grand jury for indictments. And when I began sharing with him some of the then brand new revelations from the Anthony Weiner treasure trove of, 650,000 emails.
Right.
I asked him, was he surprised? And he said, no, not at all, because based upon his experience, 70% of the political elite in this country is engaged in pedophilia.
Disgusting.
So you had this Jeffrey Epstein running a plane, the Lolita Express, down to a orgy island in the Caribbean, which was loaded with cameras.
Right.
So they get the politicians into compromising positions with underage kids.
Oh, Bill Clinton with 15-year-old girls. How about that?
Well, no doubt. I mean, Bill Clinton's a real scumbag once you get to know the truth about it. I mean, Roger Stone even had a book about him called The Clinton's War on Women, and now Hillary would go after any woman who protested Bill's sexual abuse. I mean, it's really grotesque.
Oh, yes.
But the fact is that they have compromised a whole lot of politicians this way. It's just a variation on J. Edgar Hoover, who had sex dossiers on the members of Congress. So, you know,
right.
They'd have photographs of a senator with his mistress. You know, they'd have an agent drop by for a conversation with a senator, and they'd just say, well, you know, Senator, we want you to know we have this information, but we're going to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. And as they're leaving, they'll say, and by the way, Senator, we hope you'll remember us when the time comes for appropriations. So Hoover was able to manipulate the Congress through the sex dossiers, but the mob had one on Hoover, including compromising photographs of him with his close personal friend Clyde Tolson.
That's right.
So that they were able to manipulate Edgar, who wasn't able to even acknowledge the existence of organized crime until after the Joe Vlacci hearings, when it was described in such detail, the structure and organization, it was no longer politically possible to conceal.
Wow.
But this is an old technique, just brought up modern with digital cameras, mini cameras, you know, on airplane flights to a secret location with underage children and the like.
Oh, well, that was literally the key to Hoover's secret power. I mean, he was literally president, I think, for a while. I mean, over LBJ. He just had so much power at that time.
Well, Lyndon was quite a ruthless guy, and he used Hoover. They both hated JFK, both of the Kennedys, for that matter, all three of them, when you put it all together. Lyndon had forced himself on the ticket in Los Angeles in 1960. He wasn't even on Jack or Bobby's long list, much less Short. Jack had actually already invited Stuart Symington of Missouri to run with him, but he gave him overnight to think about it. Bobby went by the Johnson suite to extend a pro forma offer, never imagining he'd show the least interest, and was dumbfounded when Lyndon jumped on it. Threatened to expose that Jack had Addison's disease, wasn't expected to live a long, healthy life, that he'd had dalliances with beautiful women, some of whom were spies for East Germany, both of which were true, by the way, information that Lyndon had obtained from Edgar. And he added that if he were not on the ticket, then in his position as a powerful majority leader of the Senate, he'd bottle up any legislative proposals coming down from the White House, which would be dead on arrival. Well,
wow.
Bobby and Jack tried to figure a way around it, but they were boxed in by LBJ. When one of his wealthy backers learned that Lyndon would be on the ticket with Jack, he burst into the Johnson suite cursing and swearing that now LBJ was going to help JFK become president. Bobby Baker took him into a bedroom and explained what they had in mind. He came out all smiles and said he thought that was an excellent plan. Bobby Baker would later declare that Jack would not survive his first term and that he would die a violent death. In fact, Lyndon Johnson would subsequently send his chief administrative assistant, Cliff Carter, down to Dallas to make sure all the arrangements for the assassination were in place.
Well, that's just so. It's such a rabbit hole, Mr. Jim. It's unbelievable. The JFK. It's just it's still relevant. I think. I mean, it just proves there's a deep state. But going back to the whole Pizzagate thing. I mean, this has been going on for a while. I mean, if you are familiar with the Franklin cover-up, or the Desaparecidos. I mean, this is a global pedophile network.
Yes, that's right. And Kathy O'Brien, among others, has written about it in her book, The T-R-A-N-C-E, Transformation of America, about major players, including, George H.W. Bush and Dick Cheney and Harry Byrd of West Virginia. I mean, he was the rules, the expert on the rules of the Senate. They were all engaged in these sex acts with children. In fact, Kathy O'Brien talks about how her daughter was taken by George Herbert Walker Bush for her initiation. I mean, it was just tragic. But the fact is, it's a huge thing. One of the reasons why within 24 hours of Hillary's concession speech, John Podesta and Robbie Mook, who were campaign managers, made up the Russian hacking meme out of whole cloth. I mean, there was no truth to it at all. was to distract attention from the miserable campaign they'd run, but also divert interest from the contents of the WikiLeaks revelations, which led to Pizzagate and to John Podesta himself as the pedophile in chief, but also to obfuscate Hillary's own collaboration with the Russians, including, for example, the sale of 20% of American uranium, which just happened to be underneath a Bundy ranch.
That's huge. Yeah.
All these things, turn out to be interconnected. So we had Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, who were put to death in the electric chair for sharing American atomic secrets with the Soviet Union, and yet you have Hillary Clinton, who sells off 20% of the American uranium supply, with the approval of the Barack Obama, then President of the United States, mind you. And, so far she hasn't had so much as a slap on the wrist. I mean, it's all pretty disgusting when you think about it.
It's beyond disgusting, and it's been going on for so long. I mean, this Pizzagate, I mean, it's as old as Rome. You go back to Rome, and the senators would have kids in hot tubs, and now this is what they're saying. They say this stuff is coming out that they kids in hot tubs, and the FBI dossier that came out that has all these symbols and code words that they use, and the WikiLeaks. I mean, you can see why they're going after them so vehemently. I mean, they got dirt on these guys.
Absolutely. For those who are not really familiar with Pizzagate, there's a wonderful video. It's only about 20 minutes long, called "What We Know About #Pizzagate." You'll probably see the cover yellow with a beaming smile of Barack Obama. One of the revelations that came from the WikiLeaks is that Obama spent $65,000 to fly hot dogs and pizza in from Chicago for a private party at the White House. Now, obviously, he wasn't flying in, pepperoni or a hot dog with sauerkraut. He was
right.
Those are slang terms for little girls and little boys. To the White House, he spent $65,000 taxpayer money flying children in from Chicago for a pedophile sex party at the White House. I mean, that's Barack Hussein Obama.
Professor Fetzer, it doesn't surprise me because, we found out through dreams of my father, a real father, who Barack Obama's real father might be, that his real father might be the pedophile pornographer, Frank Marshall Davis. So, it kind of makes sense.
Oh, I think it all makes sense. And if you also track down that Michelle is not who she pretends to be,
or he,
this is so scandalous.
I had a video that went right. I had a video that went mega viral. Sorry, but I had a video that went mega viral about that exposed the anaconda that's hiding in her trousers. That's all I
know. From the Ellen DeGeneres show, she's really she's got a package that most women do not have.
Dear
it's
God,
rather embarrassing. I had a friend in California during a visit discussing this, and she was in a state of disbelief. And she was telling me, I was explaining how, for example, when they were coming off a plane, the wind blew up.
Right.
And this package was exposed, and Brock thought it was quite hilarious. And she said, "Oh no, that's just a menstrual pad."
Oh, he was laughing.
You can't tell the difference between a menstrual pad and a peanut sample.
No, I mean it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean it's like bouncing all over the place. Michelle Obama's like walking into a black escalator. It's like, I mean it's gross.
She used to play football at Oregon State before she transferred to Princeton. This appears to be when she did her gender transformation. She was Michael Robinson at Oregon State, Michelle Robinson.
And it makes so much sense because you see this whole renaissance of everything transgender as soon as Michelle Obama or Michael or whatever his name is gotten to the White House.
He even referred to his wife as Michael to the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Yeah.
One formal ceremony. I mean, he got pretty blatant about it, pretty casual. Of course, Joan Rivers was asked,
yeah.
Now we've had our first black president, you think we'll ever have our first gay president? And Joan was just saying, well, we already have. And of course, Michelle is a tranny, everyone knows. And then reporter was in a state of disbelief, had no idea that these were the case, obviously never spent any time doing research on the issue. One of the striking developments has been the discovery of the actual parents of their daughters, because they're on loan. They're the children of her personal physician and her husband. Not, of course, two men can't bear children, so apparently they put them on loan to the Obamas. I don't believe they actually adopted, but so there's a video. I found them. I found the parents. You can check out online. The children are the spitting images
wow.
of their mother and of their father, respectively.
Yeah, I've been looking at that too. I've been putting doppelgangers together. That can't be their kids. It's just unbelievable. But again, getting into the darkness that is Pizzagate, it's just, I mean, they have artists coming out there, Maria Abramovic, and then there's this other woman that's making this disgusting art of, like, literally children being raped and sodomized. I mean, it's grotesque. It pisses me off. I mean, how could we allow these? I mean, I would give them the electric chair without wetting the sponge, like in that movie, The Green Mile. That's just me, but you know, they allow them to run around and do their thing.
Oh no, I know it's outrageous. I gave a fairly lengthy discussion about Pizzagate at a Free Your Mind conference here just about a year ago, last actually. And, I don't know if it's out, but it might be out. But the part about Pizzagate is fairly serious. You know, I had to warn the audience that there'd be some images here that they might find highly disturbing.
Oh, what they call the spirit cooking? I mean, that's extremely disturbing.
Spirit cooking, right. Menstrual blood, urine, semen, all concocted together. That's quite a tasty dish.
Oh, God.
It's disgusting beyond belief.
And these celebrities go there.
Hillary appears to be quite in the middle of it. Nancy Pelosi appears to be involved.
She's got a pizza joint.
Chuck Schumer appears to be involved. I actually believe Al Franken actually is involved as well. I mean, this is very dark stuff and very disturbing. You can see why they've been fighting Trump so fiercely. They're afraid they're going to go down if he actually drains a swamp. And there's some hints, some suggestions he may be doing precisely that.
Right.
Their goose may be cooked.
Well, all these deviants are falling to the wayside. I mean, you're finding out that Matt Lauer's a dirtbag, and even Charlie Rose, that that old freaking fart. Sorry, that old buzz.
How about Matt Lauer, for crying out loud? This was the highest paid guy on TV. He was at like $28 million a year. That guy.
I mean, they're all being roasted, and Weinstein. I mean, what was it? The Obamas were leasing out one of their daughters to Weinstein, the pig. What?
I don't know, but gee, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I'm telling you. And apparently, Gwyneth Paltrow was one he exploited repeatedly.
Wow. No, but I don't really have much sympathy for the Hollywood, demagogues, though, Jim. I really don't. I mean, I don't know.
It's fascinating to see how the mighty are falling. I mean,
yeah.
It's really fascinating stuff.
No, it's under Trump. We're seeing the pedophile network being attacked like never before. I mean, just an amazing, onslaught against these fiends.
Yes. Well, we have reports. I mean, this is very interesting, Bruce, if it hasn't crossed your radar yet, but there's a investigative journalist by the name of Liz Conklin who has been reporting that Mueller actually isn't going after the Trump people for Russian, collaboration because there wasn't any, but going after the Hillary people and all those on the other side involved in Pizzagate and all that. One report has over 4,000 unsealed indictments that have been brought by a grand jury. So,
wow. Wow. So
if this is right, then it's going to be the greatest political sting in American history.
Oh, so they can feel the devil biting their ass right now as we speak.
Well, you've got John McCain wearing this big heavy boot, and Hillary Clinton wearing exactly the same style big heavy boot. And turns out they're GPS locators so that you can know exactly where these people are at any time. So it looks as though they have already been ensnared, but the mainstream isn't talking about it all.
No.
None of this.
None of those they live reptilians are going to talk about what we're talking about, Professor Fetzer. But McCain, I hear he's ensnared in pedogate as well. I mean, it could be just a before it's news article, but most of the time it turns into news.
Wouldn't surprise me. Nothing surprises me anymore. We have a totally corrupt Congress that is also completely under the control of Israel. It's a really disgusting situation. Cynthia McKinney revealed here, now it's a couple of years since, that when new members of Congress arrive in Washington, they're asked to sign a pledge to put the interests of Israel ahead of those even of the United States.
Well, I don't agree with that too much. I mean, the whole Israel thing, I don't really like to bash the Israelis too much, because I mean I just see that they're literally surrounded by just total just barbarians. I mean, all over the place, and they are the eyes and ears of the U.S. in a way, and helping somewhat keep us. I mean, if they go, we go. Most of the libertarian most of the libertarian people, they agree that Israel's an ally in a way out there.
Well, you got to understand, Bruce. I mean, that's the naive view. But the Israelis exploit the United States. They use our resources. They use our manpower. 9/11 was set up to draw the United States into endless wars in the Middle East to take out the modern Arab states and serve as a counterbalance to Israel, not for the benefit of the United States, but for the benefit of Israel. And it's been going on just a bit too long a pace, I'm sorry to say.
Well,
apparently, the Israelis are pretty upset that we didn't deliver Syria on a silver platter because of the intervention of Russia and Iran on behalf of Bashar al-Assad, who, by the way, is a democratically elected president of Syria.
That's right.
We talk a lot about freedom and democracy, but there we are trying to take out the democratically elected president of Syria.
Or what did Putin say?
The democratically elected government of Iran, for crying out loud.
Right, Putin called Bashar al-Assad his son of a bitch. He said he may be a son of a bitch, but he's my son of a bitch. Anyway,
we had that about who someone said that, I think, about George Patton during World War II.
Anyway, I don't like the U.S. being taken advantage of by anybody. I mean, if $80 million, which is nothing, goes to Israel, I think it should go to Detroit as well, or Skid Row in Los Angeles. But you know how it is.
Yeah, I do.
And they are a military ally out there. I mean, at the end of the day, I know the Israelis been engaged with endless, little wars with the Syrians, going back to Operation Orchid, Orchard. They're taking out, their people, or their people taking out their people. I mean, it's just endless, and it's just such a murky black hole.
Well, we diverge on this issue, which is just fine, but I see Israel as exploiting the United States to benefit Israel, and Israel isn't benefiting the United States. It's a bad situation, one-sided, and very unfortunate in my opinion. We have to regain control of our own government. Right,
but then again, who created Israel, Jim? I mean, I'm pretty sure the Brits created Israel. I mean, that's the Saxe-Coburg bloodline. It goes back to Bavarians. It goes back to the Nazis who came here and took over the United States clandestinely via Operation Paperclip. I mean, they created NASA. I mean, Werner von Braun. I mean, you talk about a black hole, rabbit hole.
Yeah, who actually conducted an expedition down to the Antarctic to collect moon rocks that had fallen there after being dislodged from the surface of the moon by the impact of small asteroids, captured in Earth's gravitational field and brought down there so they could be produced later as bona fide moon rocks from the space flights, which were actually impossible. We couldn't have done it. We didn't have the propulsion power. We didn't have the computing power. We couldn't have overcome the Van Allen radiation belt.
That's right.
So he, as proof, he produced bona fide moon rocks. They simply hadn't arrived on Earth by the mode of transportation proclaimed.
Well, it says who? The Freemasons could have been Limburger cheese, for all we know, Mr. Fetzer. Professor. I'm just a comedian.
The moon thing is just one of the most stunning of all these hoaxes.
Yes.
It's really amazing. For those who are interested in the latest, I have a recent blog about why Stanley Kubrick's fake confession matters. You can find it on my blog at jamesfetzer.blogspot.com, where I include not only an explanation about them having produced a fake confession with an actor playing the role of Stanley Kubrick confessing to having filmed the moon landing, which he actually did do.
Right.
But because it turns out to be faked, and there's a second version where you can hear the guy who's interrogating him actually directing him, telling him what to say and so forth. So you infer that since the interview was fake, that the content must be false. But in fact, it's parallel to the Dan Rather sting, where Dan Rather had discovered this fitness report on George W. Bush when he was in the Texas Air National Guard. He'd gone through it word by word with the commanding officer who dictated it, with a secretary who typed it. Well, when he reported it on the air, fully confident of his material, the protest came from the Bush people that it was a fake document because it was typed on using an IBM ball font that didn't exist at the time it was originally dictated. What had happened was Karl Rove and Karen Hughes had discovered the problem, had it retyped with this more advanced ball font so they could declare that it was a fake document. People would infer, therefore, fake document must mean false content, but in fact every word of the content was exactly true and accurate. So that's like what they're doing here with this Kubrick fake confession.
Right.
What I embedded there, by the way, are some of the best videos discussing the moon landing hoax, including one that first captivated my attention when I was in London with my wife in 2001 and found it was being played on one of the BBC's channels. It's entitled Conspiracy Theory. Did we land on the moon? And it just gives one scientific argument after another proving we didn't land on the moon. It's still one of the best out there.
Oh, yeah.
So I added with that two more recent interviews I'd done with Dennis Camino about the great moon landing hoax and then the real deal, more on the moon landing hoax. It's pretty fascinating stuff, but you'll love this, Bruce. There have been 3 recent revelations that have confirmed it. I mean, it happens all the time. NASA, a couple of years ago, announced the greatest obstacle to manned travel to Mars was the Van Allen radiation belt. But of course, it's been around as long as Earth, about 4.5 billion years. So it's a problem now going to Mars. Obviously, it was a problem going to the moon in 1969, 70.
Why can't they go back? They say, "Oh, we can't go back anymore."
I know. So what happened? You lost the technology. Here's a second. They found a treasure trove of moon landing footage in a basement. And, if this had been bona fide, it would be like the most priceless footage ever made by man. And they destroyed it. NASA destroyed it. Here's the third that I think is a topper. NASA has offered a $20,000 reward for assistance in solving their space poop problem. They can now only handle 14 hours of human waste aboard the spaceships. Well, these trips to the moon took 7 or 8 days. So what did they do then? What it means is the whole space program, all our claims to having gone to the moon, are just about an enormous, humongous pile of space poop.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what it is. It's just a pile of space poop. I mean, I've heard Henry Kissinger, Donald Rumsfeld, they've talked about how the moon landing was faked.
Well, there's that interview, but it appears to be actually a fake conversation. I like that interview because it did look as though they were being honest, but that also appears to be fake footage.
They edited that whole interview where they're talking, supposedly exposing that they like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're talking about fake news, right?
One of these mini psyops. You're supposed to think, oh, well, they just faked it. Then, of course, we did go to the moon. It's no substitute for actual proof we went to the moon, which we could not do. It wasn't even, within our technical capability.
Did they film it? Did they film this thing at MGM Studios in London?
Well, Kubrick was responsible. I have an excellent chapter by Jay Wiedner in the book, and I suppose we didn't go to the moon either, which Mike Palachek, who's a series editor, suggested to me as a title after we published our first book, Nobody Died at Sandy Hook, to which someone might respond, yeah, and I suppose we didn't go to the moon either, it sounds so fantastic that nobody died at Sandy Hook.
It's just 2001 Space Odyssey and Star Wars and Star Trek. If they didn't those things and they got the CGI, I mean, come on, people.
Well, it looks as though they gave Kubrick the money to make 2001 A Space Odyssey for faking moon landing footage.
Exactly.
You've been doing a lot of research yourself, Bruce. I'm very impressed. You know quite a lot about quite a few of these.
Thank you, Professor Fetzer. I'm just trying to be a good talk show host in this competitive world of podcasts and talk show hosts. Every other minute they spring up like mushrooms, out of the dark. You don't know. Oh, hey.
Yeah.
And I've been around for a while, and a lot of people know me, the good guys and the bad guys. But then again, I don't know who's who sometimes. That's just the alternative media world we live in, right?
Yes, indeed. But it does stun me about some cases, like this woman, who couldn't tell the difference between a menstrual pad and a male member. She's a very smart woman, and I just was blown away. I even sent her a photograph where Michelle Obama is sitting there, and she has a testicle exposed.
Oh my God! She's got the physique of.
Real swanky. She looks real swanky, and there you can see one of her nuts exposed.
She's got the physique of like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michelle Obama. I mean, nobody says nothing.
Big, broad shoulders. I mean, give me a break. She's got a narrow waist. She's not shaped like a woman.
Her hands are bigger than Shaquille O'Neal's hands.
For the very good reason that she isn't a woman. I mean, it's just shocking.
She should be playing in the WNBA.
I had done research on this, but had decided not to talk about it until Barack Obama started attacking fake news. And I figure, look, if this guy who's a complete phony from beginning to end is going to attack fake news, I'm going to out him, because he's the biggest fake I've ever encountered in my lifetime.
And he's running this deep state, these holdovers of the shadow government. Tell us, Professor Fetzer, before we sign off, how triumphant has Trump been in really fighting this deep state, or is he in too deep? Could he become part of it? I mean, what's going on? I mean, he's got Henry Kissinger in his cabinet. I mean, he tells us things we like, and then he talks to these creeps. What's going on?
Well, there are two crucial dimensions to this. One is how profound is his commitment to Israel? It may be that that's going to override everything else. I mean, look, when Bibi Netanyahu comes to the United States, he actually stays with Jared Kushner and Ivanka in their home. That's to be blunt, Professor Fetzer, I think all this Russia collusion is not. It's totally not true, but it's more like Israel collusion. No, I'm not saying that because I'm anti-Israel. I'm actually Sephardic. My wife's Jewish, and my family is Jewish, and my new family's Jewish, and I know more things than most when it comes to Judaism and what's really going on. I also know that there's a total shadow government in Israel as well that maybe does act like a tick on the back of the United States of America. But at the end of the day, I think they're our ally, and again surrounded in that sea of caliphates and just pubic hair bearded bastards. I'll take the Jews over them. We're going to learn in fairly short order because because if Liz Crokin is right, and they've been running a sting, if we do have over 4,000 sealed indictments, he really is draining the swamp. We have a report of the Marines going to Langley and seizing computers and records there, and similar events happening with the FBI. So it looks as though big moves are afoot.
He said the FBI's in tatters.
Yeah, in the future of the course of the nation. So I'm hoping those reports are well founded. I've had them come from enough sources now that I believe they are true.
Right. No, I think he's for real. I mean, I myself have a small business with my wife. We do handmade jewelry, and we were just elated and ecstatic when we heard him say behind a whole bunch of Christmas trees, be like, I want to help people that have small businesses, like the lady with the jewelry store online and all that. And we were like, whoa, we put on the foam hand, number one. I mean, I'm aware of the bipartisan big government establishment, but there's just something about Trump. I don't see him as a politician. I see him as a businessman, first and foremost.
Well,
that's what people don't get about him.
What has bothered me lately is this massive tax cut for the rich, because it's not going to do the rest of us any good, and it was moved through Congress without even looking at the tab, which turns out to be $1.45 trillion over the next 10 years. And even when you throw in economic growth, it's still going to run $1 trillion over the next 10 years. I think that was wrong on every possible level. I mean, it's benefiting the rich, but, Trump is supposed to be above that. So that disturbs me a great deal, Bruce. I'm hoping against hope. Look, I mean, I voted for the guy with great expectations. Right. And I'm going to be acutely disappointed if he doesn't come through here. I'm just seeing conflicting signs on both sides of, how he could pan out for good or for bad.
And all these people that are going to say, oh, he's going to be impeached, I mean, they're just full of it. I mean, come on. Did they impeach Bill Clinton? No. Are they going to impeach Trump? Absolutely not.
Well, Clinton was impeached, because impeachment is bringing the charge in the House, and then you have the trial in the Senate. He wasn't convicted. He wasn't thrown out of office. But I agree with you. There's no prospect there's going to be an impeachment against Trump. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yes. But there's so much control of the media by the forces of evil. I mean, the Hillary Clinton, the CIA, the old DNC, the hangovers from the Obama administration. That's a real problem Trump has had to deal with. And we'll see if he's able to manage. He's a very smart guy and easy to underestimate. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, Bruce.
I predict seeing him hit just a slew of home runs in 2020. I mean, there's no way that they're gonna. I mean, the DNC, the Democrats are gonna put up anybody that could actually beat this guy. I mean, creepy Joe Biden, really? I mean, we're talking about Pizzagate. You see that guy rubbing everybody and kids hate it, and they run to their dad. Hey, this guy's rubbing me, and what a creepazoid.
I know. All you got to do is show that in the Oval Office where he's standing behind this young girl, and he said, do you have any idea how horny it makes me to stand beside a 13-year-old girl?
Oh, my God.
He has no idea what he's talking about, but the rest of the world do.
And then he says, oh, no dating until you're 30. What the hell?
I know. Absurd.
These Democrats are pigs. I mean, just like if you break down the etymology of Democrat, demos, it's Democrat. I mean, they're just a terror. That's what they are.
You're a very smart guy, Bruce. I like the fact you know so much about so many issues. I really enjoy having this conversation with you.
And you know what, Professor Fetzer? This was an epic home run interview with you. I've been waiting to interview you for a long time. I've heard you on all the other guys. I know them too. and I said, you know what? I gotta have him on my show. Yeah, so I friended you on LinkedIn, and you're one of the most just entertaining and informative guests I've had on in a long time.
Well, those are kind words, Bruce. We can do it again sometime if you like.
Absolutely. You got to come back on, and we'll talk about all the topics, all the fake news. I feel like we really just punched a hole right through the fake news' face.
Yeah, good. You're doing a good job.
Thank you, Professor Fetzer. Big fan, and you keep up the good work and be safe. We'll talk soon. Thank you for being on the show.
Pleasure, Bruce. Bruce. Thanks for featuring me.
Thank you, Professor Fetzer. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
You got it.
That was Professor Jim Fetzer. You heard it. We punched out the fake news, didn't we? We sure did, folks. And I tell you, this double feature, this Montalvo Monday nights just got a hell of a lot better, didn't they? I mean, Will and Benny, the NSA. Yeah, Will and Benny on. And Jim Fetzer. What do you know? Great stuff. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys Friday, 9 p.m. Mountain Time. We will be interviewing none other than Jordan Maxwell.
You're listening to MBN Montalvo Broadcasting Network.